What if the person you keep thinking about is not actually gone, but just moving back towards you in a way you can't see yet? What if the silence is not the end, but just the space before the return? And if you've been sitting there checking your phone, wondering why they haven't texted, wondering whether they forgot you, wondering whether someone else is now in the picture, then this is exactly the message you needed to hear today. Because I'm not here to tell you to chase them, beg them, or prove your worth to anyone. I'm here to remind you that the energy you hold about yourself is what decides how love shows up in your life. And when you really understand that, you stop panicking over the distance and start seeing the bigger picture. Most people get stuck because they stare at the current situation and treat it like the final answer. They look at the delay, the silence, the mixed signals, the old messages, the last conversation, and they build their whole emotional state around that. But manifestation doesn't work that way. Your current reality is not the truth of your future. It is only a reflection of what you have been assuming for some time. So if you keep saying to yourself that they're not coming back, that they've moved on, that it's too late, or that maybe you weren't important enough, then you are not just describing the situation, you are feeding it. And whatever you feed keeps growing. But here's the beautiful part. The story can change the moment you change. Not the moment they text, not the moment they call, not the moment they suddenly realize what they lost. The moment you shift internally, everything starts to move in a different direction. Because love in your world always responds to your state. If deep down you see yourself as someone who gets chosen, someone who is easy to love, someone who does not need to chase, then that is the energy you begin to carry. And people feel that. They may not understand it logically, but they feel it. And this is where most people make the biggest mistake. They put all their focus on the other person and almost none on themselves. They ask, what is my SP doing? What are they thinking? Why haven't they come back yet? What does this sign mean? But the real question is much more important than that. The real question is, what am I believing about myself right now? Because if your inner conversation is always, I'm not chosen, or I'm always the one who gets left behind, then even if that person returns, the same old energy will try to recreate the same old pain. You do not want a temporary return. You want a stable connection. And stable connection starts with stable self-concept. So let me say this directly to you. You have to stop seeing yourself as someone waiting at the door for love to decide whether it wants you or not. You are not waiting to be approved. You are not waiting to be selected. You are not waiting to become worthy. You already are worthy. You already are enough. You already are the kind of person who can be deeply loved, consistently loved, and remembered. The moment you start living from that truth, the energy changes. You stop clinging. You stop begging. You stop overanalyzing every delay. And strangely enough, that's often when the return starts to happen. Now, I know what you may be thinking, but what if they're with someone else? What if they don't care anymore? What if too much time has passed? I get it. Those thoughts feel very real when you're in the middle of the waiting. But thoughts are not commands. Thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are just old patterns trying to pull you back into the same emotional place. And every time you entertain those thoughts without correcting them, you keep the old story alive. So when that voice shows up in your mind, don't argue with it for hours, and don't obey it either. Just replace it calmly, quietly, naturally. Tell yourself, what is meant for me knows how to return. Tell yourself, love always finds its way back to me. Tell yourself, I do not lose what is truly mine. And no, this is not about forcing someone to do something against their will. This is about changing the version of yourself that you are occupying. When you stop feeling like the person who has to wait, you become the person who already knows love comes back around. You become calmer. You become less triggered. You become less available for confusion. And that inner shift affects everything around you. Your energy becomes softer, stronger, more magnetic. You are no longer moving like someone who is afraid of loss. You are moving like someone who trusts love to meet them properly. That trust is powerful because when you are constantly checking for proof, you are telling your mind that you do not already have what you want. But when you relax into the feeling that it is already yours, something inside you settles. You stop needing to force signs. You stop making every little thing mean something huge. You stop acting like a bird waiting for crumbs of attention. Instead, you stand in your own value. You begin to understand that love does not have to feel like a struggle to be real. The right person does not stay away from the energy of someone who knows their worth. And this matters not just for one person, but for your whole life. Because when you learn how to hold this kind of inner state, it affects how you show up in relationships, in work, in money, in opportunities, in everything. A person who knows they are chosen does not beg. A person who knows they are valued does not settle. A person who knows they are enough does not shrink themselves to keep somebody else comfortable. And that version of you is far more powerful than the version that is constantly wondering, constantly hoping, constantly waiting for something outside of them to validate them. So if you want them to return, stop building your day around the absence. Stop starting every morning with a thought of what is missing. Stop ending every night by replaying what went wrong. Start training your mind to live from a different place. Wake up and remind yourself that love remembers you. Remind yourself that the people meant for you feel drawn back to you. Remind yourself that distance is not stronger than identity. Because once you stop identifying as the one who gets forgotten, you start experiencing life very differently. And yes, there may be a delay in the outer world. That does not mean nothing is happening. It simply means the old pattern is dissolving and the new one is forming. Don't rush it. Don't panic. Don't go looking for proof every 5 minutes. That kind of watching creates tension, and tension always tells your mind that you don't trust the process. Instead, trust it. Trust that your inner state is more important than the outer delay. Trust that love can reorganize itself. Trust that people can return. Trust that the version of you who feels chosen is the version reality responds to. Because at the end of the day, this is not only about them returning to you. It is also about you returning to yourself, returning to your peace, returning to your power, returning to the version of you that does not abandon yourself just because someone else went quiet. And when that happens, something very interesting starts to unfold. You no longer feel desperate for a message. You no longer feel dependent on a reply. You no longer feel like your life is on hold. You start living again. You start feeling again. You start becoming magnetic again. And from that place, love has a much easier time finding you. So tonight, instead of replaying the pain, try something different. Close your eyes and imagine the feeling of being wanted again. Imagine their energy turning towards you. Imagine the conversation flowing easily. Imagine the distance disappearing. Don't force it. Don't overthink it. Just let your mind rest there for a moment and feel what it would be like if the return was already in motion. Because in many ways, it is, not because you chased it, but because you changed. And that is the real shift. They always return, but first you return to the truth of who you are. You return to the version of yourself who knows love does not have to be chased. You return to the version of yourself who feels safe, valued, and chosen. And when you do that, everything else starts to fall into place naturally. I hope this helped you. Subscribe, and I will meet you with another golden nugget soon. Happy manifesting.